So it is May 12th, and I will call the Policy Advisory Committee meeting to order. Ms. Lima is absent today, so I will lead the meeting in her absence, but we do have quorum as there are 3 of us present. We'll do a quick meeting roll call. Andrew, do you want to start?
Andrew Hennius, attorney for the committee.
Rob Mezzanotte, assistant superintendent.
Kenny Dubas, superintendent.
Great. And Aaron Earl, school committee chair. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. It looks like we may have two citizens' comments.
Do you want me to I don't know how this works at these subcommittee meetings.
Yeah.
I know you're doing a policy and grading committee.
Yeah, so
I don't know if you want me to comment then or you want me to comment now. Your choice.
No.
Yeah,
No.
so you have to comment during the public comment is when you can make comments.
Okay.
So you just have to comment.
I don't know how it works.
yeah, no, that's a good question. But yeah, we'll do this time and then go from there.
Okay, thank you.
And you don't have to, per our policy, you don't have to say address anymore.
Oh, well, Dave Avedisian, North Kingston High School social studies teacher for, 25 years now. Many of us in the faculty have discussed the proposed grading policy and would like to convey a few thoughts. It is understood that the student success is the primary goal for us as educators. We want these policies that help students be successful. We also understand there are many different types of success that we would like students to achieve. The grading policy is focused primarily on content mastery and attempts to create a system that measures this type of success in a fair and equitable manner. With that said, many of us are concerned with some of the elements that we believe are lacking or not prioritized. We also have concerns about the lack of emphasis on formative grading and the implementation of the retake policy. As educators, we understand there are many attributes to contribute to student success. Generally speaking, most of us would agree that highly successful people are motivated, organized, passionate, and demonstrate high levels of self-discipline. Teachers currently modify and individualize instruction to make sure these hardworking students will succeed. This is not something that can be written into a policy. There's a general concern that the proposed grading policy does not place a high priority on these attributes. For some students, their grades motivate them. For others, it's the academic programs that are available to them at school. The teachers at the high school have been told of no overall grading issues which requires this radical change. However, many of us believe there's been a continued decline in courses that would help the less motivated. A one-size-fits-all grading policy does not help or address this issue. North Kingstown High School has always been considered a high-performing school that attracts numerous families from other districts and draws new families from out of state. Why not let the teachers at the high school discuss the issues they see and bring forth ideas that could support the implement, since they're the ones that would have to adhere to the policy? There are too many issues with the proposed grading policy. It is not something we support as currently written. And we hope that it's sent back for further review and a much larger discussion with the high school teachers. We believe the current middle school policy, which has been in place for many years, serves as a pilot of this grading policy, and we have yet to see the benefits of it at the high school. And I have a packet here for you guys. First page signed by all the history teachers. Second page, I was on this committee also with Mr. Gillette. He wrote a letter. Third page is from English. I'll give you all a copy of this. Fourth page, math. Well, actually, third page, careers. Fourth page, math. World languages, which is really comprehensive on it. And then I just want to let you know I've been on several grading committees, 2014, 2021, 2025. And I've collected things from previous years and kind of put them all in a nice little summary. And today, one of my fellow coworkers today handed me an article from 2022, Grade Inflation, a Systemic Problem in U.S. High Schools. And I wanted to include that article. And then finally, if you don't believe me, in 2021, I solicited feedback from my friends who are all in private business and asked them about when we tried to implement this retake policy back in 2021, and I asked them to respond to it. So I made you each a copy. I guess Ms. Lima's not here, but I think I have enough for all of you. You think?
We can give it to her.
Yeah. Thank you. And then the last. Where you see, I did, to give you some background on what I did here in the end. Near the end of this, you'll see notes from, it says notes on teaching and learning grading policy from 21 to 25. I wrote some of the previous solutions that's been done over the years. And then I wrote my own page, parameters in which, one or myself would consider, and many other people agree, a retake policy. And then the last page are quotes from some of my friends. Like I said, that's from 2021 also.
Thank you.
So I tried to put something together that's pretty comprehensive for you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else like to speak? Let's see for moral support. Okay, perfect. No worries, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to the approval of the 4/28/25 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we do have policies to discuss. Ken, I do need to take you up on that offer, I think. Actually, hold on, that might be a lie. It's a lie. I'll be back. So the first policy that is on for the agenda is IKA.1 and then IKA. And so, Rob, I defer to you on kind of how you want to take these and what, like, as far as like together, separate,
Sure.
whatever. I know we did have a combined draft, whatnot.
Yep, so the policy, what is it, policy IKA, well, basically we propose a combination of policy IKA and IKA 1, which are the middle school and high school grading policies separate. So I'll talk a little bit about the process. So you probably remember we talked about this a while back in terms of discussing the grading policy. It hadn't been updated since 2013, and we wanted to relook at it, and we wanted to bring together a group because it is an important issue. It's an impactful issue, and so we brought together a group that began meeting in the fall. The group consisted of myself, high school and middle school administration, high school teachers, middle school teachers, special educators, MLL specialists, parents, and also high school students. So we met beginning in the fall up through to the spring each month, and we had a good lengthy discussion about a variety of things grading related. We talked a lot about the purpose of grading. We talked a lot about the communication purposes it serves. We talked a little bit about philosophy behind grading. We did some research on best practices with regard to grading, read some articles. We also looked at neighboring districts that have more recent grading policies. We looked at some of their language around what they did with grading, and kind of did a little compare and contrast of that to ours, and talked about what we liked and what we didn't like. And really, I think that we kind of tried to summarize our work around a lot of key questions, right? And there were some key questions that Mr. Avedisian touched on, some of the teachers have touched on, which is the questions around reassessments. We had a lengthy discussions around that. We had lengthy discussions around different approaches to what a passing grade should mean, what should a passing grade be, and all of those things. So it was a difficult topic. There's a lot of different opinions and things like that, and we tried to kind of stay consistent with, first of all, understanding of what does a grade primarily communicate, because that's ultimately what it functions as a communication tool. What does a grade primarily communicate to the student and to the family? And so we tried to really drill down to what that means, as far as the grade being a reflection of learning, and a demonstration of what the student is able to do with regard to the academic content taught in the class. And that there are behaviors obviously contribute to that, and behaviors should be factored in to how a student is graded, but ultimately the goal is for grading to communicate student learning primarily. And so that's a little bit of what came out of the communication that we decided upon.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the reassessment question, again, it was a spirited discussion. There were differences of opinion. I think ultimately the reassessment question that we looked at is first of all consistency, because there is some inconsistency going on right now at the high school level around what opportunities there are for students to reassess in certain classes versus others. So we felt like we had to have some consistency around that. We also talked about making sure that Any reassessment opportunities, we set up language that provides guardrails where there's responsibility on both sides. There's responsibility on the side of the school, but there's also responsibility on the side of the student. That it's not one way or the other. And so we tried to capture that into some policy language. But we also talked about the importance of what reassessment means philosophically about grading, right? That the idea is that students, we are asking them to show us what they know on core essential knowledge and skills. And that as educators, the message that we want to send to our students is that this work is really, really important, and we're going to hold you to high standards so that you're going to be successful here and successful when you leave here. But we're also going to support you if you're struggling to achieve those high standards. And that was really the goal of that language, was to message that to our students and our families, that we are going to support you through the struggles that you may have with performing at a high level at our school. And so that's really just a summary overview of things. I can certainly talk more about the more specific language that's in there, or if you have questions on it, we can talk about that more.
Can you highlight any of the major changes between the current policy and the proposed policy?
A lot, because you mush them.
Yeah,
right?
there's
Just,
considerable.
like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Looking at like what we can just kind of,
Yeah.
I'm just
So
thinking,
the-
because
so-
people that are watching this, they have those questions.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just kind of.
Yeah, that's a good point.
comparing the
So
two.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I can do that. So if you're in the policy right now, I'm not going to go through the purpose and the philosophy. You can look at that. But
Yeah.
if you go down to the content mastery grade piece, and Ms. Lima asked about what does this mean in non-teacher language, content mastery grade. Content mastery grade very simply reflects a student's level of academic performance in relation to the content standards that they are taught, right? So it's how well you do on what it is that you're taught, and how well you can perform the knowledge and skills that you're asked to demonstrate in a particular class. And those things are typically measured by assessments, summative assessments, so assessments for the purpose of grading. And for this, we sort of divided them into major and minor categories, with major summative assessments being the more traditional, they can take on a lot of different forms, but you often see them as things like unit tests, but they can also take the form of lab reports or written essays or oral presentations or major projects or performance assessments and things of that nature. But these are cumulative assessments that measure a student's knowledge over a decently long amount of time. And we talked about those assessments representing, from a percentage standpoint, somewhere between 70 and 80% of a student's overall grade in that particular class for that particular subject. That is a change from what had been previously. Previously, we had separated grading in a 75-25 split between what we called summative and formative. One of the things that I felt was important was to make sure there's a clear understanding of what formative is. And this might sound a little bit nitpicky, but I think it's important. Formative assessment, by definition, is not for the purpose of grading. Formative assessment, by definition, is for the purpose of learning from the teacher's end how a student is progressing on a particular skill, and then using that information they're collecting to perhaps make changes or adjust instruction based on the student's growth. So to put formative assessment within a grading system really just kind of doesn't align with what formative assessment means. So we wanted to change that language just to be clear, that we know what is the purpose of formative, what is the purpose of summative. Anything
So going back to Ken's question, was formative in the old ones and it's not in this one?
Correct.
So that's a big
Correct.
part of it. Okay.
Yep.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
For Ken's purpose of
Formative
our.
assessment
Yeah.
was 25% of the grade came out of formative assessment.
Yeah. And
And
so.
75 was out of the summative assessment.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one big change.
Right, so the point is trying to make sure that formative assessment is incredibly important and necessary as a part of education, but by definition, it's not for the purpose of putting it on a report card for grading. So we wanted to make sure we separated that and said, your grades are summative grades, but they're based on what we divide into major summative assessments, minor summative assessments, and then work completion, right, is what we looked at. So the major summative assessments are, like I said, the more cumulative assessments. Those are the ones that are worth 70 between 70 and 80% of a student's grade, and those are the ones that are subject to revision or test retake policies, or retake protocols, if you will. And that's a big change from before as well, and we're gonna get back to that. So that's the first piece. The second piece would be the minor summative assessments. Those are the smaller assessments, like quizzes and things like that. That would count between 10 and 20% of a student's grade, and those are not subject to a reassessment practice. Those are more like check-ins, like more smaller assessments and things like that. And then there's the work completion aspect, which is really usually homework and classwork or assignments that students are given, not necessarily to show accuracy, but for the purpose of practice. So they're practicing a skill, they're learning a skill, they're able to do that, and that really speaks to a student's effort and their willingness to put forth, to practice the work that's going to get them ready for the assessments. And we thought that that would make up between 10 and 20% of a student's overall grade.
What was the thought process, Rob, on the percentiles? Is there like a best practice for that, or?
There is, again, that goes back to really what we talked about with purpose.
Yeah.
Right? We talked about how, what does a grade mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if we believe that a grade means primarily a student's ability to do the thing that they are being asked to do, as far as knowledge and skills in a content area, that really speaks to the percentages, that the higher percentages goes to the assessments that measure what they can do.
So did you just pick those percentages, or is that like based on?
So it was a discussion within the group,
Okay.
and we did have some.
Yeah, that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
as in conversation in the
Yeah.
grading policy group, you all landed on this. It's like
Yeah, I would say that I think there was general agreement, although
Yeah.
not full agreement.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's like we tried to work in a range too, so it's a little flexible.
Yeah.
So there's not like.
And what's the reason for the range, so for summative to be between 70 and 80% and not specifically 80% of the grade?
We wanted
Teacher
to just give a
autonomy.
little flexibility. Yeah, we wanted to give teachers a little flexibility with.
Because I was looking, like, you could slice or dice it a couple different ways. Like, you could do 70-20-10, you could
Right.
do 80-20, 80-10-10, you
Correct.
could do, so
Correct.
depending on what type of course, et cetera.
Yep, exactly. So we wanted to build in some level of
Yep.
flexibility, but we did want there to be a substantial amount of weight placed on the assessments that are for real core essential skills, that are reassessable.
Which is similar to the current policy where it's 75%.
Correct.
And now it can be 70 to 80, and what was 25% is pretty much broken down between summative work completion, which can range anywhere from 10 to 20 each
Yeah.
one.
All right. What other big changes?
So the other big changes with the reassessment language, and if you scroll down a little bit, where it talks about major summative assessment, retake, and revision, this was a significant amount of the feedback we got from teachers, and we made some edits based on that feedback that we received from teachers on
Not
this.
enough, though.
What's that? Yeah,
Not enough, apparently.
Maybe not enough, but that's okay. They
No, I
gave
agree.
great feedback, honestly, and we did make some changes based on some of the language that they suggested. But we looked at we first of all start with the purpose. So the purpose of the retakes and revisions is to allow students multiple opportunities if needed to demonstrate proficient performance on core essential learning
Sorry,
skills.
what page are you on?
I'm
There's no
on
page
page.
Hold on, let me
I'm
have
on
the page number source, that helps.
There aren't any.
Footer.
I'm on the section, their major summative assessment, retake, and
4.
revision. Yeah, page 4.
Okay.
So, so for this particular section, we wanted to put some language in that gave some shared responsibility on this topic. So for the high school, following a teacher's direction, students may retake, revise, or complete an alternate assessment of the same standards. Any major summative assessment that received a grade below 70, teachers may allow reassessments for scores higher than 70 at their discretion. That came from teacher feedback, actually, because there were certain teachers who wanted that flexibility because sometimes they, in some cases, allowed for a higher grade there. Students will be permitted to complete reassessments until they demonstrate a minimally proficient level of achievement on the assessed skills. The reassessment score will be eligible for a grade of no higher than 70 unless a higher score is permitted by the teacher and according to a reassessment scoring criteria that is clear and consistent for students. So what we're saying here basically is that students are given an opportunity to reassess. However, there's guardrails in place so that this is something that students can do up to a minimally passing level and no higher. That teachers have the ability to do that because we don't want to see a situation where students are not necessarily being the most responsible in terms of test preparation when it comes to this.
So just so I understand you clearly, so I get a 68 on something, which
Yep.
is still failing, which
Yep.
I want to talk about in a second.
Yep.
And then I'm allowed to take it, but only up to when I get a 70, and then I'm not allowed, like, that's it. So I only have to learn 70% of the material. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you're not allowed, like when you're thinking about like grading versus learning,
Yeah.
like once we hit that threshold, that's the end of the journey.
Yeah,
Am
so
I
you're hitting on
understanding
you're hitting on a great,
Yeah.
a really important point, and that is the idea of grading versus learning.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about major assessments, the thing that we have to be thinking about is what is how are students showing us that they are learning at a proficient level
Yeah.
with whatever we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
Now, how that equates to a grade is from a passing standpoint, we're saying it's 70. It's been
Yeah.
70 at the high school for quite a while.
Yeah.
So if we're saying that's minimally proficient work, right, just by a grading
Yeah.
number, typically means you got 70% of a
Yeah.
given.
I'm not
test,
questioning
right?
the philosophy. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that that's what you all mean.
That's
like
correct.
That, okay.
Yeah, that's correct. Sorry.
It's okay. You're all fired up. It's good.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just curious. I just wanted to make sure I was following what you were saying about the remediation and what they could take it up to. So.
Exactly. So that's correct.
Okay.
Um,
And that's different at the high school. If I remember correctly, the policy had no remediation, but the practice was remediation. Am I remembering
in
that
some
correctly?
cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some cases there was,
Okay.
but not all.
Yeah. And then the middle school was different. I remember that.
The
We were
middle
trying to
school
find
had
some
some- yes.
consistency there.
Yep.
Yeah.
The middle school had some language around that.
Yep.
So middle school is similar, but there is a little bit more, given the age level, there is a little bit more sort of support put in place for students. For example, like students at the high school level are expected to kind of be more like responsible for like their advocacy for reassessments, whereas middle school students may need a little more support from the teacher with that process. And that language is kind of worked in to that. So that's the second part of the change. The third part of the change that was significant is the changing of the middle school passing grade. I got some significant feedback on this from a 65 to a 70.
Oh.
So the middle school was moved from 65 to 70.
Okay.
And the proposal at least. And
Yeah.
the thinking behind this was that there's been feedback that we've heard that oftentimes with high school being a different grade that's passing versus middle school, that is sometimes confusing for students, or sometimes it's not preparing them as well for the
Yeah.
higher level, meaning they're going in with a passing grade of 65 and 6 through 8, all of a sudden they jump to.
Yeah. Consistency was definitely something the committee was looking for.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And so we were looking for that. Now, there was a lot of talk, a lot of different opinions about whether high school should go down to 65 and be with middle school. Again, there's a spirited debate to be had about that. I'm gonna give you my personal opinion, which is I think that when we're talking about trying to align grading and proficiency, I feel like minimally proficient, and this is again where I'm coming from a little bit, is that 70 is a minimally proficient score typically, in my mind. Again, that's open for opinions, and people can certainly share what they think. I think that again, we had different opinions from different teachers on that. Some agreed, some felt differently.
With aligning the middle school with the high school.
There was
Or-
really not much disagreement with
No,
aligning
about
the
what's
two.
fa-
It was
about
about
what's
what the
failing.
number
Well, I guess
is.
what I mean is aligning it to the 70.
Yeah. Yep. I know that the high school has had a 70 as a passing grade for quite a while. Yeah.
So
When
does-
you've looked at, sorry,
No, it's okay.
when you've looked, when the grading committee looked at other districts and other
Mhm.
grading policies, is a passing grade, 70 typical of what you would see in other districts?
I think it's less typical than other districts.
Okay. So us having a higher standard.
It's having a higher grade, yeah.
As someone who's read tens of thousands of high school transcripts in my career, it's all over the place. I mean, you literally go from you don't have grades and you have narrative, whatever, to scales that don't even make sense, to everything in between. I would say North Kingstown has one of the higher thresholds for when a student fails, like kind of anecdotally. Like it's very few schools I think a handful in Rhode Island have it at 70 or below, and then in the other states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, like, it's usually not that.
Yeah.
Not good or bad, just, it's unusual. It's more unique, I guess.
It's more,
Yeah.
it's less typical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lincoln does though, right?
Lincoln 65.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta go look.
I'm pretty sure.
What's that?
Yeah.
Hope so that he knows that as a past principal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 65. I'd like to- It would look pretty bad if I was wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 65.
Okay. Anything else you wanna go over as?
Those are the major ones. I mean, there's we could kind of get into the weeds with some other things, but as far as like your
Okay, so.
your major changes, yeah.
So I guess I understand your perspective on retakes. So I guess what was the rationale from the committee about the 69 being an F? Like I know you talked about it,
Yeah.
and like we all acknowledge that it's unique, but like was like the overwhelming consensus like we must keep it the same or else students won't take it seriously? Like what was the vibe on wanting to keep it higher? Because we know that one, it is unusual, but two, it does affect students' ability to have a sense of belonging at school because they can't participate in activities where students at another school that get a 67 can't. You know, like there's some discrepancy there and a lot of impact with what's fail, what's not fail. Kind of what was the vibe on wanting to keep it the same other than history? And
Well,
I'm not advocating one way or
No,
the
it's
other.
okay.
I'm just really curious on what the committee.
History did play a factor. You know what I mean? And
Like
they,
we're always like this. We're a top performing
A little
school.
bit,
Why would
yeah.
we change it? Kind of vibe.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. Like again, among people who were in favor of it, I think there was a concern among some who in favor of it that like it may be seen, you know, it may be seen that lowering from 70 to 65 means we're kind of lowering our standards.
Did you all take a look at the quantitative data of how many students get A's, B's, C's, F's?
We didn't.
'Cause I'm just curious, like, how many students are we even talking about? Because as somebody who, again, has read tons of transcripts, like, nobody even gets C's anymore, to Mr. Avedigian's great inflation point. So, like, I'm really curious about how many students are getting F's on things. Not good or bad, but
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I
how
mean, I know
big
at the
of a
building level
quantity
they've
it is.
looked at that.
Or
Yeah.
how many in between the 65 to 69 versus the fail?
Right.
Like how many students are we talking about that would have passed? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. And we.
No is an okay answer.
Yeah.
I should have said it as a statement. Hey, what would be interesting
Yeah.
to look at
Yep.
is
Yep.
it's a bad habit the patriarchy taught me. Alright, so I just wanna make sure I just wanna glance at the teacher concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know we're not going to have, there will always be different opinions on this, but I
Yeah.
want to make sure we're valuing both sides. And did the committee talk about the lack of a D? Like, which is basically that 65 to 70?
We did.
Because a D could be a 69 or a D could be a 60 to a
It could.
55. You know, like it doesn't have to be, you could not change what's a C and still
Right.
have a D. Was there any conversation about?
Yeah, there was. You know, there was. Yes, there was. Like there were people who certainly felt that way. Differences of opinion. You know.
Ken, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm still comparing the two policies. I'm looking for the difference that we take between the current policy and this policy. Because it doesn't specifically, unless I'm missing something, it specifically doesn't state in the current policy what the score is to retake a test. Am I correct or am I missing?
No, it's.
But I know it's been
yeah.
happening.
It said, do you mean the current policy, not the one that we're?
No,
Proposing
yeah,
the
that
current-
there was
the
a
current
gap.
policy.
Remember Shivali was here and we were
Yes.
like, she was explaining it and then I was like, oh, so like
So-
practice and policy are not
So
boyfriends.
what is in here for retaking? Is that any different from how it's actually done?
What is in the new one?
What's in the new one? Is it any different from how it's actually
So right now at the
facilitating
high school
currently.
level,
Like would their practice change
Right.
based
yeah.
on what's written?
Right now at the high school level, my understanding is that there's retakes that are allowed by teacher discretion. So there are some areas where it's allowed and some areas where it's not allowed. I learned actually that there was a practice where some teachers now currently actually do a retake for 75 or lower.
Yeah, I definitely knew
But
that
this-
we had a
and this
consistency issue.
Policy will
there.
say teachers may allow, so they don't have to allow, but they may allow reassessments for scores higher than 70 at their discretion.
Right.
But following the teacher's discretion, students may retake, still it says students may retake, revise, or complete an alternate assessment of the same standard. So they don't have to do it, right? Teachers don't have to do a retake.
We can rephrase it. The idea behind it is that students would be, there would be a retake opportunity for any students wishing to below
Is
70.
the concern from the teachers that they have to do the retakes, or?
I think some are, yes.
Cause I think, and this was like what we were thinking about originally, and I'm trying to remember cause it was 1,000 years ago. I think we were trying to find, and this might not be possible, like some consistency for students to understand like what they're like allowed to do. And I think that was what we had heard, if I remember correctly, about like a little bit of confusion. Cause like teacher A always lets people retake stuff and teacher B never lets people retake stuff and teacher C sometimes does. And so I think I remember hearing for some feedback from community members or folks that was hard, like not understanding the class to class policies. In college we solved it by having syllabi for each class, but we're not there. So I think that does not help. Like if I was as a mom, if I was looking at that being like, okay, William, can you retake it? Can you not take it? Like whatever, the maze and stuff is hard, but I also get that you want to give the teachers autonomy. You know, like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just like, if it's a practice for saying that we want consistency, then it should be pretty black and white. That we either allow retakes at the high school or we don't. I don't think we should leave it up to the discretion of the teacher, because I think it's gonna cause confusion for students.
That's what I was saying, but you said it much more succinctly.
It's framed, it's
That's
just,
why
it's
I'm
just
trying to-
worded weird.
That's why I'm trying to get to like,
Yeah.
okay,
It
it's
says
not
following the
policy,
teacher's
it's here.
directions, following the teacher's directions, students may retake. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, maybe, I don't know.
So it sounds like the wording is wrong.
Maybe we should say students may retake, if that's the intent.
I think what Ken and I are saying is they're either, if it's one of these, whatever they're called now, major summative assessments, right? Is that the, wait, yeah. If it's a major summative assessment, students are allowed to retake it. Like, I think that's, or students are not allowed to retake it.
I think
Like,
our
I think it's the
policy should
clarity
either
part.
we either allow it or we don't allow it.
Yeah,
And I think
that's,
we should allow it. I think that should be allowed, that.
Take a look at
Yeah.
what I just put in there as a comment as language change.
where are you on?
I'm on that section, the high school retake revision.
I see the comment. I see you.
Not pop up yet?
Yeah, I can
Sometimes
see
you have
it.
to
It's a
refresh
comment
it.
on the right.
Refresh.
And I do think, from a consistency standpoint, having the high school and the middle school be the same would be helpful. Like, again, because we were trying to develop advocacy practices for students, so like if they're able to take it, then they know that consistently, or if they're not, you know, like,
So I could just rephrase that simply to say students will have the opportunity to retake any major summative assessment with a grade below 70.
Yeah, and then the
That's
next line,
clearer.
teachers may allow reassessment for scores
Right.
higher than 70.
At their discretion.
That was something that was requested, that way.
I don't know why yours isn't showing up.
Yeah, no, I just refreshed it too.
so one of the other things, I'm trying to read this as quick as possible, was specific in logistics in terms of assessment retake. And so is there some outline about that? Because I know that was a conversation too about like how timing, like there's a little bit of 2-week period.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So,
The English department, there's so much writing.
English, no, it's foreign language, it's 4 pages.
Oh my goodness, hold on. I can do this.
So if I can summarize, a little bit of what we got back from teachers, cause that English, that's okay.
Sorry, we like one bullet. What we are concerned about.
Yeah, that's the
35
English department.
bullets.
I responded to that, I gave them a response to that, but,
I just, one bullet, that's fine.
yeah.
We are required to post, like how we graded on the syllabus at the beginning of the semester, like beginning of the year. In
Mhm.
September, the kids all get that, so
Mhm.
that's already been established.
So I did receive a lot of feedback from teachers around the logistical concerns about this, and
How many teachers were on your committee?
there
Like a
were,
handful?
1, 2, how many we had?
We had 3 high school, I don't know, I can't comment on
You
those,
were
because I don't
on
know
it?
who was who.
Yeah, he was on.
Me, Ben Gillette, and Richard Sweetman were 3 high school teachers.
Okay. So there's 3 high school teachers. I heard
think
some
there's more
special
than that.
educators.
There was,
Assuming middle school.
there was,
Judd
Lori,
Sylvia.
Judd,
I don't care who. I
yeah,
was just
there's
curious how
Melissa
many.
Brown.
I mean, I do care who, but I don't, like, I was more curious the how many was
I'm
representing
gonna look
the
that up.
teachers,
Hold on
yeah.
one second.
Okay.
So there's I'm just looking through the comments and just
Mhm.
trying to talk about some of them. So the second letter that we got from a special education teacher commented that the impact that the formative summative assessment assignment grade adjustments will have on my students. So I'm wondering what that impact would be, just 'cause I'm looking at the percentages and, you know, we're going from 75% to 25%, which is pretty, you know, there's no flexibility there, to allowing some flexibility of it being 70 to 80, and then the other 2 categories being 10 to 20. Um,
I know what Ben was talking about, if you want me to comment.
we typically don't allow, but
I would defer to you, Dr. Duval, and if you
I
would
mean,
like
I
your
think
guests.
I would like clarification, so if you don't
Sure.
mind, if
It's up to you two.
you
Yeah,
can
we
just
go that.
clarify that, that'd be great, thank you.
So the way I understand the policy, the proposed policy is that like homework, under our current policy that we have now, homework falls in that 25%. Under the proposed policy, that would change dramatically. And for some of the kids who we really strive to
Oh,
have them
okay.
make an effort, that's a problem for
Yeah.
some of the
So before,
kids.
if you did all your homework, you got 25%. Now there's a potential you could only get 10%.
Correct.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
Well,
Not
correct me if
very
I'm
bad, I was
wrong,
just clear.
but homework wasn't necessarily all of that 25%. It was formative, that was 25%.
But yes, but if the way the percentage when you put in the computer, that gets figured into that 25% locked in as part of the 25%. Whether you made the homework assignment worth a point or you made it worth 100 points, it still figures into that 25% with the rest of the assignments.
Right, but there may be other assignments that are figured into that too.
Yeah, classwork, homework, stuff like that. Yeah. Yes.
It was giving a higher percentile for effort.
Yes.
Understood.
We're trying to reward the
I understand.
kids who struggle the most with putting some effort in.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
That's concerned.
So, one of the concerns from the teachers was that with the retake policy, it will create an undue burden to teachers on creating multiple versions of an assessment and keep track of who is within the 2-week window and scheduling these retakes. This might be a silly question, but like, why wouldn't they just retake the same assessment?
They
Isn't that
could.
the point?
Yeah, they could.
But it sounds like they're saying that they would want them to have different versions because that might not be
Yeah, I mean,
fair
if
in their mind.
a teacher chose to do that, they
Yeah.
could, but there's nothing preventing them at all from doing a revision of the original assessment, correcting their mistakes that they got wrong, or just revising a section of the test that they needed to improve on. there would be no requirement that a teacher created an entire new assessment.
Is right now, not that it's the expectation from us, but is that typically what teachers do of creating another
Probably depends on the
assessment?
discipline.
Yeah, I think it depends, so.
If I think about an essay version of history, I can't comment on math. And math could easily change an equation, change some numbers, and still work with the same equation. But history, for instance, if we're writing an essay, I write corrections on their essay answers. So therefore, what are they doing? If I give them the same question, that's going home studying my corrections, I guess.
But what are you writing on those? What are you writing on the essays to them?
We're writing what they're missing in their essay.
So is it feedback to the student?
Feedback to the student,
So
yes.
what's wrong with that feedback to the student?
Well, nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with that feedback.
Okay.
The problem is, I don't want to give them the same prompt again. Most of the time I give them feedback, I work on reading and writing skills more than I work on history memorization, I guess.
Okay.
So I want to give them a different prompt to work on the same skills. I hang the grading rubric on the wall, what I expect from them. They can take it anytime they want.
But what's the purpose of you giving them feedback?
The purpose of them is so they can go back and answer it in a properly formatted essay.
So then, if that's the purpose,
Yep.
which I agree with you, because we should be providing feedback to the students so they know how they can improve and how to get better at what they're doing, why then shouldn't they continue on that essay to show you how they're making improvement based on the feedback their teacher's giving them?
I agree with that, but I do think they should have a different prompt because how do we know it? This is, I guess we get into semantics now. Did the student properly study the first time? Did they study at all? Did they cut class? Did they not come to class? Were they wandering around the building? Right? Did they come see me for help to get clarification? Most of the time I tell kids when they struggle, if you come to see me during advisory, it's a 5-minute conversation and it gets corrected like that. But we are seeing less and less kids come for that extra help. And I guess I feel a lot of our concerns that are in there. We could be here all night going back and forth on this, but I think if we had a faculty meeting with the teachers in the room and we said, all right, guys, we know you have some problems with this. How can we make this work? I think you can make it work in like one faculty meeting, just getting it back and forth from the teacher. We have not been able to do that. Our last faculty meeting, we had something to do about vision of the graduate. We had other work to do. So I really think like this policy should go in front of us and have us discuss it. Hey guys, how can you make this work? And then we can give feedback that way. I think that'd be the most beneficial. And you can hear people's concerns. And then you'd say, well, why don't we try this? This is what they do elsewhere. But I think that would be best.
Just to clarify on page 2, colleges do offer retakes, just if anyone's curious. Lots of my colleagues do.
On page 2 of,
It just says colleges don't offer retakes in this policy, will
Oh,
not
yeah.
authentically prepare students, but we don't get to live in that world anymore. The
Mhm.
students are coming to us in such different levels that there's a lot of additional support I think needed that maybe wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago.
Where did you see that?
It was on page 2 of the reasons why the concern list from the English department of like, hey, if you let them do X, they won't be prepared for Y.
That's inconsistent from college to college.
It depends, yeah, but it's not across the board.
I think at some point we do need to discuss AI. If it's
Yeah,
not in this policy,
so-
but a policy on AI, because I think there needs to be a discussion of how AI can actually be used as a tool. We know that
Yeah.
there's pros and cons, but in the world we're in and where we're going,
Mhm.
I think we really need to have a focus on how AI is actually a tool
Yeah.
that could be properly used without it being considered, or kids using as plagiarism.
Do you have an AI policy?
We
We
don't.
need to write one.
It's on
We
the
do
list.
need to write one,
Warwick
yeah.
just put one together that's actually really quite good.
Yeah.
Great. It's
I've
on
seen some
Jen's
drafts.
list, it's just,
I'll-
It's on my, yeah, I agree 100%. And there is a mention of AI under the academic honesty section of this policy, but I agree with you 100%. There needs to be a more comprehensive approach to AI besides just that.
alright, so thoughts on steps forward. Alright, so hear me out on this, progress versus perfection. Clearly, this is not a perfect policy, and the teachers still have a lot of opinions on it. If this went forward to the school committee, what would they have to change about their day-to-day practices in September? Because I'm thinking about timeline and thinking about, like, if this doesn't go forward now, it will not be able to go into effect in September because of what school committee meetings we have
We only
and
have
whatnot.
3 meetings left.
Yeah, like
I
that,
think
yeah.
it's 2 reads.
But, and I don't wanna rush anything, but I'm just curious, like the goal was to bring it together, have one policy, have more consistency, et cetera. Like what would be changed as far as practice if this went forward?
Well,
The
teachers would
middle
have,
school grades?
they would have to look at their grading categories. And they would have to just make sure that they fit them into the grading categories outlined here. So
Yeah.
the major summative, the minor summative, and the work completion.
Yeah,
And the percentages, so that would just have to work within that. So that would kind of be the transition over from the summative formative now, which is the summative 75 to formative 25. So they would just have to revamp that to fit with the major summative at 70 to 80, the minor summative at 10 to 20, and the work completion at 10 to 20. And so that would be one. The second would be that if they're not doing it already, they would have to look at how they would just provide students with an opportunity to retake any assessments, major summative assessments that are scored below 70. They would have to just look at how they would work within the language of the policy to make sure that they students have that opportunity. And at the middle school level, they would have to, based on this, they would have to make the adjustment to communicate the fact that passing grades in middle school are now 70 and not 65.
I'm just confused, we worked on this for a year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And no, like, we're gonna push it a whole nother year. Like if this, like, you know what I mean, and that's
I don't
disappointing
think-
to
I don't
me.
think we should push off a year.
I understand that, but if we do not, you know what I mean? And so one option is, we could make a couple of edits here and then send it to the school committee, and then we can hear more feedback by then, and we have 2 opportunities to edit it up there, which is honestly my recommendation, and not saying that I'm discrediting anything in here, but I think if we pause on this, and it'll be a whole nother year.
But the point you're making allows us to continue working on this, to get it approved, but
Yeah.
also work with the teachers.
Yeah.
Because if we table it and only get more suggestions or feedback, it won't get approved. But if we do what you're saying, we can continue working on
Yeah,
this
like,
in that
yeah, like I'm
process.
saying, you push it forward to the school committee. We have some conversations with the teachers, edits could come to the first read. The school committee can have feedback, edits can come to the second read. There's a month to have conversation, but if we don't move this forward, it's another year. Because I also wanna be respectful of the teachers' times, like I don't wanna meet in the summer and enact something in July that they have to implement in September, like that's not fair either.
Yep.
But I also, like, I don't wanna lose another year because we know we have a problem for students and consistency and making sure that they understand their rights as students.
I want to note the fact, and I just want to put this out there, that there was a survey sent to teachers to respond to this draft. That we had 43 teacher responses to it. Many
Middle school and high school got that?
middle school and high school.
Yep.
There were many changes incorporated into the updated language from that feedback, and if you wanted, I could show you the original draft versus what the draft
Yeah.
is that you're seeing now, because there were edits that were made. I'm just throwing that out there. There were 43 different teacher comments that were made that I saw. I responded to many of them. I didn't respond to all of them because there was some duplications, but I responded to many of them because I wanted to make sure there was a back and forth that took place with teachers expressing concerns.
Okay.
The retake, I'm just, again, I didn't read all of this here. But what I'm getting out of the retake, there's concerns about, I mean, I'd like to see more consistency on like how retakes are being provided. Whether it's either you do or you don't. And I'm also reading concerns about AP and honors classes allowing retake.
Yep.
And I don't know the reason why. I can infer that if you're gonna be going into an AP class, you're gonna go into an honors class, there's a certain expectation that you are at that level of coming to school every day, being prepared, doing the work, and there's a higher expectation of what you should be, how you should be preparing yourself in taking those
Don't-
classes.
Just keep going. If I'm
Right.
not saying it, there's a reason.
No, right,
Yeah.
and so if you're going to be taking an AP class, you should be prepared for the work you're doing. So would a retake still be provided or not provided to them?
So the current draft allows it. And again, I just always reiterating, it's a retake up to a 70, so up to a minimally passing grade. It's not a retake up to an 100 or up to a 90 or anything like that. It's a retake up to a 70. We had that discussion too. I did get some feedback on that from teachers, and I can understand the feeling on that too. I'm a little torn on it only because I believe, and there's a lot of research to back this, that grades should be tied to learning, and grades should really be tied to the demonstration of essential knowledge and skills. And so like, I look at a failing grade as, we have to think of it as, you haven't demonstrated the essential knowledge and skills yet that you need to show. And that's really what the retake is to say, you're not where you should be, we're gonna support you to get there. And so that's my take on it, but I do also see the take on it that's of the advanced courses. We have a lot of advanced courses in our high school, a lot. Not just AP, not just honors, we have advanced courses that pertain to, early enrollment classes, we have advanced courses that are aligned to, career sector, programs and things like that. So I think it's important to send the message to kids that if you don't get there, you gotta keep working.
What were you gonna say in your comment?
I think consistency, like why, like, yes, AP and honors students are in AP and honors courses, but they might appreciate the same thing as their peers. So like why, when you're in your college prep class, do you get X, but when you're in your AP class, you get Y if the goal is learning, that's all.
Okay.
And like
I
you're either gonna
understand.
pass the AP exam or you're not gonna pass the AP exam. At the end of it, like,
Right, and you're,
It is
and
what
when
it
you
is.
take that AP exam, you don't have the ability to retake it.
no, like that's it. So,
That's what it is.
but like helping them learn and get to it is the goal, so that they get credit.
I can
Um,
understand that.
okay. Next time a summary would be super helpful. If you're gonna drop it on me like right away. No, like I value and appreciate our teacher's voice, but like to give me a document like this like is a lot. I'm trying to like get through it, but like there's a lot of different points in different ways, and so
What
just
about-
like email it to me or something like
What
that.
about the difference in projects and exams, and this is on the career department page, about how projects could be 30%, exams could be 20%. If your summative assessment is anywhere between 70 and 80, a project, a hands-on project, could very well be a summative assessment.
Yep.
Just like a test or a presentation.
That's it
should
here,
be.
isn't it?
It should be,
Right?
yep.
So, I guess I'm just looking, I'm trying to, I wanna consider the concerns that are being.
Yeah,
put
I felt
forward,
like that
but I
was
feel like there's still flexibility with this policy that you can still,
So major summative
Still
assessments
is
literally
part of
says it
the-
right
Yeah.
after it. Tests, lab reports, written essays,
Right.
oral presentations, major
so
projects.
part of that 80% would
Yep.
be the projects, the
Absolutely.
exams.
Yep.
It's just, it's all then accounted for within the 80%, not
Correct.
separated out.
Does our faculty meeting line up I don't know if it does in that, your timeline where a faculty meeting happens before your next school committee meeting, so you could come, someone could come and like explain that to everyone? And like work out that before, I don't know your timeline versus
when's
ours.
faculty meeting.
Yeah.
Faculty meeting is usually the first Monday of the month, correct?
Nope. Maybe.
Well, it would prior to the June, it would be right up against the June meeting, it would be June
My phone.
4th, I think it was next, May 12th,
Third.
and then June.
So if you go to meeting on the 2nd, it's the day before the school committee meeting. That would give time. That's not the worst. 'Cause we'd see it on.
I don't have
We'd
my
see
phone.
this policy on the 3rd, and then we'd see it again on the 17th.
Mhm.
So there would be some opportunity, if depending on what the administration wanted to do. But I also think, to your point, like, I think conversation's good, but I also think if a survey was sent out to the teachers, there was opportunity for voice. So I'm not saying that is good or bad, but there was I feel better knowing that there was an opportunity that every teacher in a middle school or high school could provide some feedback, because before I was concerned that only like 5 or 6 were, so that, but also I hear what you're saying. But I do think for that concern, that is actually addressed in, like, that's pretty clear to me that you could have major projects as a major, some of it, it's not just tests.
It is in there.
No, I know.
Okay.
I'm saying, I think they're wrong in that one comment, because because I see it clearly in there. I think to that point, this is where I get concerned about like not having a one size fits all. There's such a balance between like not having a one size fits all and consistency for students. And that's where I really struggle about what I hear and the things that people say to me about their students and about themselves is that.
Where are you now? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm on page 4, 5, the one, the career development suggestion one,
Okay.
where it was talking about not having a one size fits all retake policy. Research shows that retakes do not improve student performance. I want a citation on that. No, I'm not joking, like I'd be curious to see where I would like to see that research, because that's interesting. I also thought the point about anxiety is very valid as well, from the, is that, I don't think it's math, it's English.
Yeah.
About, because I have seen some research about this, about letting students retake things or giving extended deadlines actually can increase anxiety, because it just is more weight, but then they're also having to then do the other things, and so not good or bad, but that one I have seen some research on, about how it can perpetuate more anxiety, because then they're continuing to worry about something versus being like, oh, I failed, let's move on, kind of vibe.
True, but we also hear a lot about test anxiety.
Valid.
And so you would think that like there's a little bit hopefully that's being saved on that end of students.
Yeah, like if I fail, it's not the end of the world kind of vibes. Okay, it's an interesting counter. Okay, in the interest of time, is there a theme in here? What's one thing you want me to change?
I do. Well, if you ask me, he'll tell you ditch the retakes.
Yeah.
So
But
you're, but
actually,
that's not what all your colleagues are saying.
No,
there's
no.
not a lot, there's some
They want some parameters around it, if you want me back over
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
They want parameters around it, and they want it to come from you.
Yeah.
Because
what
if
does
it's
parameters look like? Like what does
parameters,
that
is it only 1 a quarter, 1 a semester? Does it mean if they fail it 2 times, they could take it a 3rd time?
mean? Okay.
Does it
Wait,
mean
say
if
it
you?
slower. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
So are they only allowed one?
One retake a quarter, yes. 1 a semester. I don't know.
If they fail twice, can they take it again?
Yeah, yes. Or if let's say a student plagiarizes,
Yeah.
do they get a retake on that?
Okay.
So that there is language in that, in the academic dishonesty section that
Yeah.
addresses that.
Because people read it both ways. People read it as, well, if they get a retake for anything they failed, they failed because they plagiarized. That's a 0. Were they able to do that again? So some people said no, some people said yes, reading the language. So they had questions and concerns about that. Some people, I would say a lot of people fell in the camp, especially the social studies department. We fell in the camp where we felt pretty strongly, why not just implement this in the 9th grade? And then try to see how it works at the high school level. And they also felt that it needs to be a testing center.
Wait, sorry, I want to understand that. For the 9th grade, you mean like in the fall, start with just the 9th graders, 10, 11, 12, function after the other one, and 9th has a new one. What's the benefit of for our student?
Well, first we see how it works at the high school. The kids are used to it at the middle school already, and that's where the real problem comes in.
Yeah,
It's the freshman level. It's not the rest of the. It's not the rest of the levels. It's
Well, you've just beaten it out of them.
yeah, well, maybe, but maybe we better prepared them. So I think that was one solution. The other solution that was in there that I constantly hear is where and when are they going to do these retakes?
Yeah.
And so we discussed.
I heard you say testing center.
You know, we looked at room 110. I'm just throwing that out there. 110 is kind of a ambiguous room. It's used for a bunch of different purposes, but could that be the testing room? And instead of the kids coming to me in room 315, Mark in room 330, they would know that 110 is the testing center, and the teacher would float in there each period. And so it's a consistent place for the staff and the kids. They would know it does not cause confusion. And the 10 or 12 days, is that school days, business days, calendar days? Many of us feel like that's too long. We're already farther down the road in something else. That needs to be, I felt like that needed to be, well, many of us felt like it needed to be tightened up. That's too long of a time period.
If you gave a student a retake now, which it sounds like you don't,
I don't.
Do you?
Retakes?
Yeah,
Certain levels.
great. What's a reasonable time frame?
If you,
Like student fails, they get the grade back.
yeah, so
What's
I
your
would,
opinion?
I would say 5 or 6 school days.
Okay.
'Cause
so
you always
they
a weekend
get it
figured in
back-
there.
They get it back on a Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So,
It's a week essentially with the weekend thrown in there.
do you remember what the rationale, Rob, was for 2 weeks? I think it was in there originally. I think it came from the middle school.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I
But
could be
who
wrong.
makes
Yeah.
the decision of when that retake is going to happen?
Like in card
Within,
practice.
well, right, like within 2
So let me
weeks. you
find it, hold
take
on.
Right, but who's making the decision of when that student's coming back to retake the test? So
Right.
if I take the test on day one, Monday's a day one, I have that class day one, I take the test, right? But then I get the grade back, on Wednesday, I get my grade back, I'm below a 70. Tell the teacher offers the retake on the Wednesday, that means my next class essentially will be Friday, right? If we're going day one, day two like that.
Mm.
You come back, you take the test on Friday. You've already been studying, you should, and then now between Wednesday to Friday,
You want them to take it sooner rather than later because
Right, I agree with that. sooner than later.
it's the when and where we have, and then what happens. We know this happens. I got to work. I got sports. We just set a day. I'm here next Tuesday. That's when I'm offering it. If you can make it, great. If not, you lost your opportunity. Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. Is that what you're
Well, it
doing?
says here, the reassessment must be completed within a 2-week period upon receipt of the grade, and students are expected to take responsibility for scheduling the retake revision.
Yeah, but I think to Dave's point, like, there's more to that, right? Than the student just saying,
Yeah.
okay, I'd like to do it on this day. Like,
Yep.
there seems like there's some definitely logistical concerns, especially if we're increasing the retake. And so I think, even if everyone's in agreement that, and I don't think we are, that retakes help
Mhm.
students learn.
Yeah.
Even if everyone's in agreement like that, there seems like there's some logistical, like almost housekeeping concerns as well. Like
Mhm.
there's two different ones. There's like the philosophical, should we even let them retake it? And then
Mm-hmm.
if we do, how am I ever going to work this into my schedule, having more students need to retake it, regrading, making new things? And that's valuable. That is valid too, right? Like both of those things are valid, especially knowing that teachers have limited time. But also, we all are trying to help students learn and trying to figure out what that is.
Most of it, I think it needs to happen during the school day. If you really want the kids to treat it and put the time and effort in, it needs to happen during the school day in a testing center. Otherwise, Chase will be on after school.
Again, I would be open to any suggestions from a logistical standpoint of schools.
Well, that's not policy in theory. That's
Correct.
administrative. But I understand how the policy changes. I understand how they're friends, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so I wouldn't think we would write in like that into the policy,
Right.
but I get why. I understand that part of it. Okay, my personal recommendation is. Okay, so today is today. Give me 2 seconds, I'm gonna do a timeline.
Mhm.
Okay, so when's our next policy meeting? The 9th?
Next policy meeting is
June 9th.
June, yep.
Okay, so here's the different dates of what we have available. So May 20th is the school committee meeting. if we voted today to push forward the current draft, knowing that there needs to be more conversation, we could do that, and in theory, have a first read of it at the school committee level for that. We could also not do that. You could do June 2nd, if you wanted to talk to the faculty, that could be an opportunity to do that. June 3rd, you could do first read of the policy, which likely would not have those changes incorporated in it, but they could at least be discussed, or if somebody wants to be fast, that seems not possible, but good luck. June 9th, we have policy, and so policy could work through incorporating edits that the school committee and the teachers had after that first read. Does that make sense? Like, instead of editing,
So
Sorry,
the
hold
first
on.
reading, then we'll go back to policy?
if you wanted somebody to, I don't wanna wordsmith it at the school committee meeting, that doesn't sound fun
Right.
for me. So what I'm saying is, if you go to the teachers, have more conversation, we read this, we look at the 43 comments, we think about whatever. You could bring it up, talk to the school committee about it on that second date. The school committee could add any feedback that they might have, and then it could come back to policy on the 9th for us to kind of work through just like the wording, and it would still be in first read. I don't know, that's a lie. It couldn't come back, right? To be
Yeah.
first read,
You
second
could send
read?
it back, but depending on the scope of the changes, usually if there's substantive
No.
change, it would have to go back for a first read again.
Okay, I don't like that. No, you could do that if you do first read, second read, third read. You have enough time to do first, second, and third read. Because you could do two
Yeah,
first reads.
first,
Yeah,
second,
first,
whatever
first,
you wanna
second.
call it.
I'm just trying to decide if it's worth putting up right now or if we can wait.
You really need like the policy, so the input policy subcommittee and then 2 school committee meetings, right? Preferably in that order, which probably won't
Yeah,
happen.
but they're back, it's June 2nd and June 3rd, unless Jen wants to schedule a policy meeting on June 2nd in the evening.
But if we're gonna,
I'm not trying to force it, but I'm also like really not thrilled with losing a whole nother year on this.
it cannot be June 2nd for policy, there's too many other things happening in the district that both of us would be at and you. So
What do
we're
we have
not
on June
available.
2nd?
June 2nd
But-
is the high school awards night,
That's not my calendar yet, no one invited me.
so you should have had the letters went out.
In the mail?
Yeah, letters
It's
were
sitting
sent.
here somewhere, no one gave it to me, that's okay. I will add to my calendar.
Right, June 2nd.
June
We're at the
2nd.
high school from 6 to 9,
High school.
so we can't
Alright, so,
even have the ability.
sorry, in the interest of time. We gotta move it up, so I think we should move it up, and then I think we should work with the teachers, because I also don't want 45 teachers respectfully on June 3rd yelling at me during citizens' comments. That doesn't sound fun for me, or you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not pushing it up to like create chaos, I'm pushing it up so
No, I
that
mean,
like,
we
like
hear-
from
we hear-
timeline wise, we
hear the
can get it,
concerns,
yeah.
We wanna work with this, so we
Yeah.
just don't want it to turn
Yeah,
into.
but we
a meeting that's
also,
done.
yeah, but, and people are welcome to come, et cetera, but like I'm trying, I wanna move it forward, but I don't, just timeline wise, like we have to move forward.
Just need to confirm with Shirley when that faculty, I don't know when, I'm guessing it's that Monday.
Not Dave, it's gonna mess up my schedule.
I know,
And
I
it
don't
seems
know.
like, I mean, looking at this, it seems like the concern is around.
I mean, if there are more concerns than
retakes.
this in the 43 comments, like, we're not gonna get to consensus, like, and we're not going to, like, there's gonna be things,
It
there's a
really
difference between
seems-
hearing and consensus, huh?
It really seems there's concerns around retake, how the retake's gonna be done, is it for all classes or not? Is it a definite or not, the teachers give it, and then how often, which I think we can answer those questions, right?
Can-
And I mean,
can I ask
I
a
have answers
question,
right
Rob?
now.
Yeah.
Does it have to be at a faculty meeting? Like, can we hold, can teachers put together some sort of summary of concerns thing that they could then share with me and that, or does it have to be in person in a
I think
meeting?
they did.
I think
Well,
they're
yeah, but
looking
this is,
for,
I mean, this
I mean,
is,
there's stuff
I'm not sure
here
this is a
that-
summary, this is like a lot, like.
I mean,
if
I'll
there's-
summarize this once I read it, but I think what I'm hearing is that what I heard is that the teachers are looking for some sort of conversation to be able to ask questions and get answers.
I think also
That's what it
too,
sounded
the
like.
percentages, like I see their concerns and questions as percentages, and I'm thinking, okay, well, if I was back in the classroom of ways I would.
I mean,
implement
just
this
based
is
on a
to
lot
be
of the
able to
questions,
include-
and based on a lot of the questions, there's definitely questions that are like logistical type questions
Yep.
that
Okay,
Or-
why don't, okay,
I don't know.
we don't need to commit to a meeting or not a meeting, that's not in the, that's administrative. We will go through, I will go through though and summarize I'll categorize this for y'all as I'm reading it. So it'll be like concerns regarding this, concerns regarding this, concerns regarding this, what's the vibe here? Rob, if you have that other document, I would wonder if they're the same or different, but in any attempt, they did not felt heard if in the survey, because we would not have gotten this, so,
Okay.
in theory, right? Like,
Well, I mean, there's one document on here from the English department, I literally responded to this entire document.
okay, so some of them might be repeat concerns, but we
What's that?
didn't, but not a lot, yeah.
The other ones I didn't receive,
I think
Yeah.
also
but I received a lot
sometimes-
of feedback from people in these departments.
Yeah.
It also is,
That's okay.
change is hard, right? We're changing a grading policy. Change takes time. Change is hard. And we all, me included, right, we do stuff that we're used to doing, we get comfortable doing something, and then when there's a change, it takes time to understand that and think about how it actually is gonna be put into place. And that's where, something that takes time. And I think, a lot of these questions and concerns are kind of like that. Like, we've been doing this for so long, this is what has been working, but now we're changing it. So like, yes, they've had the chance to share their concerns and voice that. Policy might not be what everybody wants, but we're not gonna be able to, we may not come to a mutual agreement, but we need to have an understanding of why these changes are being made.
Okay. I'm gonna make a motion to move it forward to the school committee with the caveat that there will be edits before, or possible, or conversation before the next school committee, whatever that looks like. Or consideration of this document, I guess is what I would say. Any second?
Second.
We can-
Alright, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll summarize that for you later.
I literally just got some of those today.
I'm
so-
sure you did.
Yeah,
No, it's fine, I appreciate it, it's just there's just a lot, and I don't wanna miss stuff, on the fly. Okay, so that will go to the school committee, and then we'll work from there on that. Let's move on to. Do you wanna say for the other ones?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, thank you.
Health education?
Yes.
No, curriculum review, sorry, curriculum review.
You wanna go that one next?
Yeah, let's do curriculum.
Okay. So curriculum under, is it copy of, is that the most recent one?
Yep, copy of IGF.
No, but then she edited
Something was edited.
IGF
today.
review and
Yeah.
updated April. That one I think is the newest.
Oh,
That's
okay.
one of the little red line, that's one I pulled down.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess the April 2025
So not
one
the
is
copy
one.
of.
No, I think it's the one above
Okay.
that, if that makes sense.
Yep, yep.
Okay, so
I can
it
walk you
looks-
through this if you want.
Yeah, please do.
Sure, so, this is an update to the curriculum review and, it was the updating policy that we're calling the curriculum review and adoption policy. So basically, this was a very outdated policy as well, and there were some changes that we made, just kind of wordsmithing things. As you can see, the significant area of change had to do with the curriculum chart, which was, I think at the last policy, it was just very outdated.
For how often?
Yeah, for how often, well, not just for how, it was not how often, it was just like the year they're getting reviewed, you know what I mean? So it had ended in 2018 or something along those lines, I could be wrong on that, but the curriculum chart
Yep.
had ended several years earlier. So this updates that, and it gives us an updated, progression, if you will, to, when curriculum will be reviewed, when it will be implemented in each subject area. Aside from that, there is, again, some minor language changes, some updates, but generally speaking, it's just a policy, and then there's also a significant amount of areas removed that were really unnecessary, in our opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of it.
Okay, so is there, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is there anything from the state as far as when curriculum should be updated? You know what no, we're just,
I don't
you could have a
know.
curriculum for 20 years and the state doesn't care?
we
think
just
they
have to
have
follow, we have
guidance.
to just follow their
Check it.
curriculum updates, which they've given us, sort of like, the ELA had to be already done by
Yeah.
now, the math had to be done, now we're,
Yeah,
you know, the social.
High
is
quality
coming up,
curriculum,
The science,
yeah.
we're waiting on some
Yeah.
of it.
I just
So
was
that's
curious if
something
that
we
should be
updated
reflected in here, that like we're not solely making these decisions.
to go
Do you know what I
through.
mean? Like,
I understand what you're saying.
but you work on that, Ken. So, Ken, are you in agreement that adoption is the right word instead of updating, curriculum review and adoption?
I would definitely, yeah. I
Is that
would-
normal?
Mhm. And adopting the curriculum. Yeah, because you also have the curriculum is supposed to come through and approved.
So,
Yeah.
curriculum review.
So, if I may, I think that part of this is the fact that like, in the age we're in now, which is the high quality curriculum age, it's been found over years that writing curriculum is really not the best use of teacher professional time. That's why high quality curriculum's in place, so it's adopted curriculum.
Yeah.
And then the work is done to
Yeah.
implement that curriculum
Yeah.
like well.
I was curious, so that's where the word that was missing to me is the implement one, so I didn't know if this
Mhm.
just stops at the adoption point or if we wanna incorporate the word implement.
Okay, now I understand
That's what I
you're
was
saying.
missing,
Mhm.
like I
Okay.
wasn't questioning curriculum review
So I would-
or
I mean, what if
adoption,
it was
but
curriculum
but
review,
implementing
adoption,
was the part that I was
Okay.
missing.
implementation, and adding that in there.
I mean,
I
there
mean, it
is,
doesn't have to be in the title
yeah,
per
there is
se,
language
but
around implementation in here, but not in the title.
up to you, I don't
So
care that much.
the BEP does have a whole section on curriculum and implementing it and updating it, but it doesn't have any specific timelines. It just requires LEAs to have a policy that continues to update and maintain.
I was just saying, should we reference that in this
You could,
policy,
you certainly
either in the
could.
purpose or the philosophy, saying that,
And there's also,
XYZ
right, on
goes-
general law,
yeah, that's what I thought.
Andrew, do you mind saying?
With the BEP?
Yeah.
What is that, what's the acronym?
Basic Education Program.
Thank you. You were saying it really fast and I couldn't like catch the three letters.
Sorry.
It's okay. Alright, so we're gonna say yes to this.
and then I'll reference.
So Rob, is it do you want curriculum, comma, adoption, comma, and implementation, or do you not? Does it not cover
I don't think we need it in the
implementation?
title.
Okay,
I
perfect.
think, yeah.
Nope, don't
it-
care.
Okay,
But it refers to implementation in the policy.
it does.
Great.
Right, so if we have,
No, that's like not important in the grand scheme of things.
and then let's see where you can put the regulation.
Under the purpose, it says, continuous basis. Jen had highlighted that. I think it's probably me in her head about like occasional, like what does continuous mean? Like what's the, like it's not a continuous basis, it's like a scheduled basis.
It is, but like, there always should be reviewing of the curriculum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, as you're implementing it, there's always
Yeah,
how you're implementing it, how it's written versus how it's in practice is always something that's
you're always
continuous,
continuously
yeah.
looking at it. So,
I just sent it to you, Rob,
Thank you.
with the page.
okay, so we'll just leave that. Under the responsibilities, it said, there was a change that said the school committee charges the department's curriculum director in coordination with the assistant superintendent. And I know that we've changed since we've put into place, Jody's position. But is there, the department's curriculum director like is talking about like the teachers in the buildings, and so I guess they're not charged with that anymore, even though they would be in consultation with it.
The school committee charges the department's curriculum director, in coordination with the responsible role.
Like I was reading that, like the math department, the science department,
Right.
it could still be fine, I just wanted to,
I think, I mean, I think the piece to that is that there's not always a department director.
Mhm.
If you're talking about elementary level, for
Mhm.
example, like, it's
Yep,
not gonna
makes
be
sense.
there, so.
Alright, so we can change that. I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
it was what you wanted. So Jody had made a note about adding statement about equity in the philosophy. Did we not wanna do that, or
Mhm.
oops? View unresolved.
Click the three dots in the comment, and then you can unresolve it.
Okay.
I can,
It's just in the
Yeah.
purpose, right?
Yep.
If I just put the word equity and highlight it.
mhm.
Okay. So Rob, there's tons of notes from Jody here, but I don't wanna assume, did you,
We did it together,
okay,
yeah, so it was really her notes.
that's
that-
fine, I just wanna make sure that
Yep.
you,
Yeah,
so can you just explain to me, and maybe you didn't, I missed it, all the stuff crossed out at the end,
mm-hmm.
you just think that's not
We
needed?
kinda just thought it was
It's
unnecessary,
kinda weird.
that we thought it was unnecessary?
No,
Okay.
it's just interesting that they're like, this is social studies.
Yeah, it just,
Why would
this
that
was,
be
this is an
there?
old policy, I think it was last updated in like 2013 or something, or,
No, 2006, you're being
sorry,
generous.
I'm even being more generous,
Yeah.
2006, so like, it was,
Maybe before the internet. I'm not joking, like that, it might be defined here
Fix it.
for, like from the carryover of the
Yeah.
last policy where things like that weren't readily available,
Yeah.
maybe.
we just thought it was unnecessary.
Yep,
Less is more is.
yep, okay. So. What happens? Oh, you didn't make it. Okay. So in the old version, it said, like, it was a little bit more specific for, like, a lack of a better word, like it would say like needs assessment, goal and objectives, material selection, methods and strategies, staff development, program implementation, and program evaluation. Like it outlined what years those
Mhm.
things would happen in.
So you look at the chart now?
Yeah, like you replaced it with our chart,
Mm-hmm.
but then like what we crossed off had a little bit more detail.
Okay.
I'm not saying it should be in there or not, like it seems very specific to me, but just wanted to note that we were taking that stuff out, and I don't know if we wanna write about it in a, and it might be up there.
Where are you grabbing that from, the?
Here, look, so, underneath the chart,
Yep.
there's this old chart.
Oh, got it,
That's all
yeah.
crossed out, but then
Needs
if you
assessment, goals,
look, it
objectives.
like
Yep.
outlines those things and then like says when those would happen. So like for example, with library, like you would do a needs assessment
Mhm.
and then it would go from there like years wise and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that we need a specific chart like this, but just making sure that these things on the left are reflected in like part of the implementation is XYZ and like an
Mhm.
evaluation will have, like just making sure all of those things are captured somewhere if we're
Okay.
gonna delete that.
Yep. Yeah, so if you look at a curriculum cycle, it says a curriculum cycle will be established to provide for continuous updating and renewal of the curriculum. The cycle will consist of the following steps: assessment of student needs, development of
Mhm.
goals and objectives, selection of materials, development of instructional materials, delivery of staff development, implementation of curriculum. So,
Yeah, it covers.
yeah.
It just didn't have the evaluation piece, maybe, but maybe that's
Program
somewhere else.
evaluation.
Oh no, it's underneath. It's the next one. Program evaluation.
Yep.
Okay. So let's clean this up. That's a lie. Let's make Jen do that. I'm just saying. Alright, so Ken, is there anything that I don't know, are you okay with this policy going forward?
Yes,
With
I am.
the changes
And
as made?
I added something, I added a statement in there to put in the purpose regarding equity within the curriculum. So you can consider what I put over there for you. It's in the comments.
We're committed to ensuring our curriculum is inclusive. Oh, perfect. That was just what I was doing. Yeah, it looks great. Recognize the diversity of our learning community. Yeah. Inclusive, representative, accessible to all students. Yep. Like it. Thank you.
Is there anything
So
else,
do you
Andrew,
want-
that you
Do you
noticed?
wanna go through this and just make sure it's all set before it goes
Yeah.
up?
Is there anything that in the
You know, you
law?
can kinda consider the comments and just make sure it's what we need to say.
Again, you can certainly reference the BEP on this, and I sent it to Rob.
Yep.
Mhm. So we added,
Yeah, the RIDE,
RIGL.
the RIDE website, that was from the RIDE website, that's what they reference around curriculum.
Is it the RIGL we want to reference or the BEP?
Well, I would
Do
reference
both.
Both? Okay.
The BEP is more explicit.
Okay. By referencing, do we mean
You
like
just
we
say that
want
we're gonna follow the
Yeah, I think I
curriculum.
think what I sent you, Rob, has the legal site for it, actually.
implementation, will follow the BEP, which is the
Yep.
basic education
Yep.
Program. Yep.
set forth by RIDE as well as the
Yep.
general law, blah, blah, blah.
It looks like, the BEP was last edited in 2018, so I would just maybe reference that date, just so people know which BEP we're referring to.
So we can say the policy will,
It says the timelines are in the regulations, but when I went through, I read it quick, I didn't see the timeline, but
Why
I
would
remember back from
I didn't see any
18,
timelines
19,
either,
like,
Ken, I
remember
didn't.
getting all of that.
Maybe they meant.
Yeah, I know they got the dates in there, timelines of when things need to be reviewed, like when the state was putting implementation in.
When was the law, when was that law made?
It's, May of 2019 is when it was introduced, and it was. I don't have a date of when it was passed.
so would I cite this by just saying like
That's the site right there.
title 200 dash
200
R?
RIC,
Got
yep,
it.
that's the baby, and it's just called the Basic Education Program. is
So
all I wanted.
to 200 dash
This is 2019 in this reference.
RICR 2010.
Yeah, it's just passed in 2019. I don't have the exact date.
I would assume that it's in, that it is hopefully the same as the BEP, which was edited in 2018.
Do we want this link in there? Is that,
I-
do we not want links?
I don't
Mm-mm.
think you like to link things, yeah, I mean, that's,
Which link are you talking about?
The Rhode Island General Law link?
No, I would
just
just
put it
write
there
it,
so we,
yeah.
we can.
Kenny, you're looking at the statute on curriculum?
Yes. It was 16/22/30/33.
Wait, what's 1664?
1622.
I know we're wrapping up here, but
Yeah.
I got it.
When you leave,
Right.
we end.
So do we want to,
Huh? I think we have to.
we gotta
Yeah.
vote on this, right? So we didn't do that yet.
Yeah, okay. You wanna make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to, send, policy IHA, nope, wrong policy number, hold on. Policy
IGF.
IGF, curriculum review and adoption, for a first read for the next board meeting on, May
Yep.
20th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Okay.
Thank you.
good.
That might be.